That's very easy. The first time I heard it, I got two invitations, and one invitation.
Well, too much time has passed. We got through all of Lent and we're almost all the way through Easter now. Anyhow, well, thank you for coming. I don't think you had a choice. And we're joined by somebody from Tejas, from Texas. So there he is. I don't think we can, I don't know how to pull him up that he can be seen, but I can see him here. So, yeah, but we'll start with the prayer and then I'll introduce Susan. We'll go over the class. In the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. On this memorial today of Saint Isidore, the farmer, as we reflect on his humility and how he did ordinary things well, starting day with Mass and caring about the poor and how deacon-like he lived and Christian-like. So we pray for his intercession today, and also through the intercession of the patron of canon lawyers, Saint Raymond of Peñafort. We also lift up anybody who is in a difficult marriage, those who are trying to get former marriages resolved, that they may find the process is not too cumbersome, and that tonight's session will provide some assistance to deacons, especially those who will be helping people in the future. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay. So, Avanti. So for those of us, those who are in the English section of the class, we covered quite a bit, and we covered marriage law, and we talked about impediments, we talked about grounds for nullity. I also mentioned that there are administrative processes, that not every case, not every marriage has to be judged formally, that there could be times that just with the paperwork process that the marriage could be, another marriage could be declared invalid, quite easily if certain criteria are met. So I thought tonight we'll go over the formal process quickly, at least to go over some of the questions. And Susan, I'd like to introduce Susan Stankus, if you give her a round of. I think you might be the senior employee at the RCBO right now. When did you start?
No, was it in the ground?
Okay. This is okay. Nara has her beat, but I mean, so she's been around a long time, and it brought stability to the canonical services. And so sometimes if the priests get lazy, they don't want to think they'll call and just ask Susan, well, what do I do about this? So she's always available to answer questions, but
That's a good thing.
that's right. Yeah. But we want to do our best to to try to use the tools that we have. But I'll tell you, I've had in the RCIA program that at St. Martin's, I think almost everybody had a marriage issue, believe it or not, of some type or another, and a couple of them were just so, I was stumped on how to go from there. And so I had to go to Susan, and even we had to go back and forth. So we will get, sometimes there are cases that are that you really have to think about, just like in the legal, right? How do I want to go about this? So that's what, especially when canonical services can come into play. So so I will start with going over the formal decree of nullity. We're not going to read it word for word. Ustedes tienen la forma en español, ¿no? Okay. También por carta aquí. We have it. You have it in English?
Oh, that's just this.
Oh, okay. I'll give them a second one. Who else? Yeah, there's both in Spanish. Okay. And then I have the Vietnamese, if you have those forms. So, if we could, at least, you're gonna correct me if anything on any place I go wrong here, but we were always, we're always safe, I think. And what happened here? Okay. We are always safe, when we have, please, yeah, when we have a situation with somebody who has been married before and divorced. Remember, we talked before that, especially in the United States, we have to make sure that before we can accept the case here to look at the canonical validity of it or not, that the person has to already have been civilly divorced. So either the canon law, if somebody who's not civilly divorced approaches you as a deacon or me as a priest, what is it? The code of canon law says that, well, the person should be encouraged, the couple should be encouraged to, to try to hang in there, to try to work out their differences. So, this is not the first resort. Oh, your things aren't going well. I got, do you want English or Spanish or Vietnamese? I've got the form right. That's not the way we do it. We try to discourage, we're not looking for more business here. But we try to discourage the people from doing that. Can you see? I think hopefully he can see the screen. Okay.
On senior,
Yes.
do you have a power plug into your laptop? Otherwise, it's gonna go to the standby.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah, I do have the power. Okay. Oh, it goes right here. Okay. Do that. So, is that what it does? So it tries to save power? Okay. So, as I was saying, it's always, we could always go with this formal process. There's never going to be a reason that we could not go the formal process. And by formal, we are, remember, as I explained, we are looking at the facts of the case and to see, and, listen to the testimony of the petitioner and of witnesses to determine, might there have been something canonically faulty with the consent that the couple gave, at the time of their marriage. So we always can resort to a formal case, and we'll have handouts that show you, well, there's certain times that's all we can do. The purpose of tonight is partly to go over this, more to show you the administrative ways we can proceed in some cases. So has anybody laid eyes on this before tonight? This form? Okay. So there's an application for a formal decree of nullity. So we're going to go over this before we go over when somebody would have to do this. But so if we go to the right here, competencia, and I may have gone over this before, but we want to remember that well, at least since 2015, so it's in place now that we talked about this perhaps in our English class about competency, about jurisdiction. So just remember that if somebody comes, if somebody is driving through Orange on their way to Las Vegas and they want us to help them with a marriage nullity case, we have to ask some questions. We have to determine, well, did the marriage take place in the Diocese of Orange? If it did, no problem. We can deal with it. We would take it from there. We would adjudicate the matter. Number two, if the petitioner or respondent has domicile or quasi-domicile in the Diocese of Orange, so either living here full time or living in a place with the intent to be there for a time or eventually permanently. So our guest on Zoom I believe now has quasi domicile in Fort Worth, right? Because he's there for a time, he intends to live there, so now he's not gonna be submitting this form, I'm not saying. He's shaking his finger like this, and I think he means, no, I'm not gonna do it. But he has quasi domicile, so anyhow, so
Could I just-
please, yes.
But I get a lot of questions from like the cities, like Irenaeus, or like border towns, where people don't wanna go into the LA. So it's not where you go to church, it's where you live. And then you really have to, I think sometimes the submitting person doesn't really look at the address, they just assume they live in Orange County or something, so. I don't know if he's from where, but that comes up very often, so.
She was kind of hard to hear.
Oh,
You were directing.
I'm sorry. So I was just saying, it doesn't matter where you go to church, you have to live in Orange County. So if you're going to a border town, or if you live in LA County, or I don't know, San Diego County, San Bernardino, if you like the church here, you might not be able to apply here in Orange if you don't live here. And that's really important to look at, because you might assume working at a church, everybody lives.
Yeah.
We'll have to get divorced in that one.
Yeah.
No, it's a very good point, because it's not only with marriage, but with other matters. Well, marriage, I mean, we had at our parish, I mean, this couple, it comes to Yorba Linda, they live in Chino Hills, and they're gonna be getting married in yeah, where are they getting married? Anyhow, they're getting married somewhere else, so in Las Vegas or something legitimately. And so my parochial vicar didn't, he turned the paperwork in here. And, Stephen, one of the tribunal people said, oh, wait a minute, we don't have competence, we don't have jurisdiction to, to even forward this matter, because it's not, these people don't live here, even though they're worshiping here. So we don't have any, Our Lady Guadalupe La Habra.
Well, yeah, we're assigned there, but we're from Whittier too, so we're in LA, but we serve in Guadalupe.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, aren't they lucky? That's kind of reason I with all sincerity. But so one thing the Our Lady Guadalupe has been doing for decades is they have the forms for the archdiocese and the forms for Orange, because so many people are crossing over, because the Whittier places don't have Spanish, right?
Right.
No Spanish offered at St. Bruno's or Beatitudes.
There is at St. Mary's in Uptown.
Oh, okay.
and St. Gregory, but
But anyhow, so some will, pass the curtain, but so that's the first question that says, well, where is your address? So we know how to start you off. But that being said, correct me if I'm wrong, that's with the formal case. If it's a lack of form, do we have, we would still do it, we're still okay. It's more for this judicial process than the documentary process. Does that make sense? But you have to ask questions before you know where to get there. So,
But if we're busy, we might not.
we
We
might
have
just.
the choice.
Okay. Oh, bien, okay. So, investigation process, so everything begins at the parish level, right? And so, if somebody says, well, I've got a marriage issue, you don't tell them to call the diocese. Please do not tell them to call the diocese. We try to help them at our, at the level, and if somebody comes in a language you don't speak, you try to find somebody who can translate. And then if we go to page number 2 here, and this is very helpful information, but it says, the petitioner, we know what a petitioner is, right? The one who is initiating the process, putting in the petition. If that person wants, adjudication from a judgment, that person, absolute collaboration on that person's part. And Susan can tell you that that's not always the case. Sometimes we'll have people submit, especially like with an RCIA case, where the they're, the person doing it is doing it for the spouse. Because the spouse wants to be, become Catholic, but the person the spouse is married to was married before without an annulment. And has to get his or her marriage regularized. Is not particularly enthused about it. And that's where it could become sometimes difficult. You could have a petitioner who's doesn't really have his heart or her heart in the whole matter. But for the spouse, he or she is going through the motions. But it is important to kind of mention that we really do need this cooperation. Yeah,
I'm gonna say, sometimes they just sign this, but you can tell. You can tell it's not them, I'm even filling it out.
the wife is doing it. Yeah,
But we still. Oh,
yeah.
we just,
We try to help, but
our goal is to get people to the sacraments and.
Yes.
Our darndest.
do our darndest, but that's why it's such a help if the more we know the process and the more you can explain why that the church, holds marriage in such high regard, such high esteem, and we value your marriage. And so who are we to just overlook or say your first marriage wasn't valid? That wouldn't be really respecting what the church, what the Bible says, what Jesus says about marriage. So, we have to look into it if you want, otherwise it's going to be presumed that it's valid. Right? Any marriage, okay. So what about the respondent? The respondent, in any of the cases, really, I mean, we can only do so much. Respondent means the other part, and sometimes the respondent is happy to help. Does that happen very often? You turn your head. You've been out of the tribunal too long, she's telling me that they're not always so happy to help. Sometimes they are, but will the case be stopped if a respondent doesn't want to cooperate? No. Sometimes it might even help the party, but in any case, we want to explain that the respondent, by law, we have to contact the respondent who may or may not want to participate. And has a lot of leeway. They could sign, let her be happy. I don't want nothing to do with this, I'm going to fight this tooth and nail, even if I have to make an appointment with the Pope. So there's that disparity. And then the witnesses. So when you go to confession, when one goes to confession, the priest is going to accept what the person says as true. We might have to ask some other questions to get a better understanding. When it comes to, somebody challenging the validity of his or her marriage, I've got no reason not to believe you, but because of the nature of justice, we do need to prove this. So it's not just somebody coming in and saying, oh, my marriage didn't work. Oh, you seem like a nice person, stamp it off and you're going your way. It has to be looked into. So we are helped with witnesses. So that's why we ask for each person to, if there's parents who are living, siblings who are living, anybody who might be able to shed light on how things were before, when, growing up years, the dating period, the early time of the marriage, a little less helpful, later on. If somebody has the whole gamut, that's a big help. But we do have to have witnesses. So if one party comes in and the respondent isn't cooperative and there's no witnesses whatsoever, those are hard cases. Those are very tough cases. We could look at documentary, but proof, but it could be a little bit hard. Okay. So far, so good. They're going any slower, we're not going to get anything to, okay. And then we go to. Okay. We talked already that there's, in the United States of America, there's no civil effects. So we do not report to the government that the Nguyen's and the Nguyen marriage didn't work out. They'd have to ask, they need more information and that.
Could you like put the plus sign just to make it a little bit bigger?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Thank you, okay. That'd be right here?
100%.
Right in the middle. Middle top.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Very there.
Right below it.
No, but it's not going pretty.
There you go.
Thank you, Monty.
Well.
Perfect.
Okay, so,
Thank you.
okay, no civil effects and. Boy, the money asked for is quite reasonable in I mean, this has been $700, hasn't gone up even with inflation. So, but that's what we asked for. Nobody's gonna be turned away if they can't afford it. But there are, there are expenses, there are salaries, there's benefits, there's paper, there's mail, there's postage. So if people, hopefully nobody's gonna push back on this, but
I know the English in there, the civil effect is at Canon 1137, but in Vietnamese it says 1628.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Well, no, but this is about the legitimacy of children. So that there's, okay, well, yeah, 1137.
Wow. Good check, Louis. Is that the one above it?
1628's above, is that the one?
Oh, okay, all right.
Well, 1628 is above your civil effects.
Okay.
I think that, yes, okay.
Minus one.
Okay. Now,
We've got homework.
okay, we'll go through this quickly, but I think you could, I don't think you really need a whole lot more here, but we're just asking for this this information. Okay, I bet this is one of the easier parts to fill out, I think. And the respondent, it's understood or it's accepted that you may not, if somebody's been divorced for 35 years or is contentious, that the address may not be known. However, if somebody's gonna leave it off, to try to, so that the respondent doesn't get involved, then that's not gonna work because we have ways.
I know.
We have ways of finding them.
But also, I want to point out, if they have kids, they often are paying child support or receiving it or something. You gotta be kind of forceful sometimes.
Yeah, don't just, well, I'd rather not say. Well, you really, you're gonna have to, and I know it's I know it could be contentious and people want to avoid conflict. I don't want to, maybe say it in Spanish, poke the bear. I don't want to, I don't want to, ruffle things up. Okay. Answer the best as you can. So, and then these are all easy questions. When did you meet? When did you get engaged? The marriage. If they can't remember the name of the marriage, the date of the marriage, well, it's on the marriage certificate. And where did it take place? So, church, chapel, or courthouse. Well, if one party was Catholic, probably we wouldn't be filling this form out because, if they got married in the church, or I'm sorry, if it was chapel or courthouse, never mind. But the name of the church, where a Catholic party should be in there. But what if you had two Protestants getting married? It might have been the courthouse, and that's enough. You remember we talked about that? Okay. I just want to make sure, yeah, okay. All right. And then the validation, we talked about if there's a validation, so if there was a civil marriage, with at least one Catholic, and then they really, we better get this blessed in the church, well, then that's a validation or convalidation. And then we're also going to want to know the number of previous marriages. by either one? Was this the only marriage they had? Were there others? And then,
You just started asking the age of the children, I don't know why. For now.
is it children? Yeah, but I think maybe one reason is because, we also want to make sure that as much as we can, that yeah.
Child support.
Yeah, the child, I mean, not that we're not the police, we're not the, but we could, well, I don't know, there could be. Yeah, I have to look that up. There is you know, I mean, well, we could give a warning if there's, you know, if there's 4 children under 18 or something, and this man's gonna marry somebody else. You know, we might wanna, there might wanna be some warning to the next party. It also gives us a better understanding. So final separation, whether it's formal or not, the final decree of divorce, any later marriages by either party, and have you petition another tribunal for a formal formal nullity case. So remember I said that there are 3 different possibilities, right? Where the marriage took place, where the petitioner lives, where the respondent lives, or we didn't go with that. I think I skipped over the rest of it, or where the majority of proofs can be found. Those are the 3. And so if somebody petitions another tribunal and gets a negative decision, and then, oh, now I'm living in Orange, let me try Orange. We have to know about that, right? So it doesn't mean that the person cannot submit a petition again on different grounds, but we have to know what that first tribunal decided, because we can't try it on the same grounds and then find it a different way. That would be very, very troubling. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. They've got a smart class here. They've always asked good questions. And then we just get nosy here, don't we, Susan? Are you seeing somebody or in a relationship with somebody you may marry? You know, we're kind of trying to find out what is the motivation of this? If this person has a previous marriage, this marriage must also be investigated and requires a separate annulment process. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I'm just, sorry,
Please, no.
but often if the Catholics, the petitioning party and they're married in the same Jewish person. Oh yeah, I was married 3 times. And then the priest or deacon sends it in and they're like, well, who cares? They're not Catholic. And then everybody's frustrated. It really has to come out anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you're what religion you are, that marriage has to be resolved. And when you want to marry someone, they have.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
It's claro. Okay, all right, sure, okay. It's not gonna be any more claro if I try to speak Spanish. Okay. And then the intended spouse, so these are all is he an RCIA or she, what religion? So because there are times that something will come in as a formal, and because these questions are all answered, we find, wait a minute, we don't need to go the formal route, we can go an administrative route, and we can stop not even start the formal process and just detour it or funnel it into a more simple case that's going to save them money and save contention and okay, man, with any counseling, is any counseling done? And then here we have the witnesses. Now, if we have 80-year-olds who are asking for nullity, well, the father or mother may not be living or whatever. I mean, that's if it's available, it's available. If not. And then I said additional witnesses who knew you, the petitioner, and the respondent before. So we asked that. And look at how helpful we are that we even have, we have the questionnaires, I think, in the different languages. So we have Korean, yeah. Oh, we don't,
We
okay,
have Korean nuns.
Yeah.
Yes.
okay. There's a Korean deacon who was always very helpful to. He's retired, okay.
But you, Father Eugene. I think Father Eugene gets Korean nuns.
Oh, the Korean nun stuff, okay.
Mhm.
So you see that we have these options here, okay? And then we have the policy here, basically, we're not guaranteeing anything. But so please, there's sensitive information here. We're considering this confidential. We're not making it available to the witnesses or nor in other civil proceedings. And then a few other things, that sometimes the availability of information might be restricted for some valid reason, because every so often we will get, somebody who's not happy and I want to see, well, what did this person say? What did that person say? And in general, whatever information the judge uses is going to use to make the decision, we would have to make available to somebody who wants to read the acts of the case. Well, how did you base this? Well, we based it on witness information, on your testimony, and on your former wife's testimony. But we can restrict it. We have to be a little bit careful, if that makes sense. So if somebody thinks, oh, I'm just going to come in and write these things that are not false, well, those are going to be subject possibly to somebody looking at them. So people have to be as truthful as possible. Okay, and here's a questionnaire, and I think we'll go over this quickly because I'm watching the time. We have the first 6 questions, I think, that are pretty straightforward, if you ask me. But sometimes, how was your family life and growing up years? Fine. Oh, okay. Relationship with your parents? Fine. Everything was fine. That's not overly helpful as we're trying to, for the judges. Oh, it's fine. Okay. Well, what does that mean? So part of our duty as ministers in this regard is to help the people to complete the form in a complete way. But we've gotten some that are 40 pages, haven't we? 45 pages. It's just too much information telling us if somebody got one that,
5 feet reservation.
yeah. They got the employee of the month for, selling filet of fish during Lent and that kind of stuff. It's, well, this is maybe helpful for somebody, but not for us. And so,
But we get a lot of yes and no, and I think that's more often the problem.
the people don't want to say too much.
They interject again. Is that what people don't understand is they're really angry, or often they're angry because they got divorced for a reason. But this isn't a divorce. We often have to explain, because they'll say, like you said, oh, everything was perfect. Their wedding went off without a hitch and blah, blah, blah. But 20 years into our marriage, this one started gambling and cheated and became an alcoholic, so you're not asking why you're getting divorced. We're not divorce court, we're annulment court. That's what issues were there at the beginning. So that's something that's really helpful to explain to them. They don't, and they don't hear it.
Yeah. So, and I think we even went over this in class, so we're really looking at, was there something
Sorry.
standing in the way? No, it's very helpful at the time. I think one explanation we gave is everything's 30 years and then the husband finds a younger woman and wants to run off with her. Yes, there certainly could have been something standing in the way 30 years before. And we do want to know why the marriage ended, but because he was unfaithful 30 years later, on its own is not going to be sufficient grounds for the declaration of nullity. Yeah, okay. And then religious upbringing, dating, how long, why did you marry? And sometimes people can't answer that question, but they should think about it. What did the parents say? any unusual circumstances with somebody drinking? You know, was there drug use right before the marriage? Was there lack of fidelity at the bachelor party or something?
It happened.
Somebody threw up. I mean, I don't know that the person threw up on the way down the aisle. I mean, maybe they could show he was sick or had, anyhow. Ate the wrong food. But, and we talked over this, you know, do we know anything? Was there a clear intent not to have children on one part or the other? Did somebody convince that divorce is enough to dissolve a marriage? Certainly, you know, well, not certainly, but somebody who's getting prepared in the Catholic Church should not have that conviction. But since we are judging also possibly Protestant or other wedding marriages, that somebody could be in that camp.
One of the things that happens before marriage, is the word involved is focus. And we tell couples that what happens, this year stays here. But I mean, can they ever use those, the way they answer those questions, be focused? Because they ask.
Yeah. Do you know what the focus instrument is?
Yeah.
I should know what it stands for, as I use it all the time. But I noticed that it's very clear in there that you're supposed to shred. Those don't go to any party, and they're not supposed to be used. So
I've seen them.
yeah, but sometimes they stay in the file, and they're not supposed to be.
So you could think of those. I mean, there's information there that could indicate that somebody. But it's done, you shred them.
You're supposed to shred them. Yeah. Now, do I write if I have some concerns, and I have? Is there anything wrong with the priest or deacon writing down? We talked about, you know, the fact that the mother is very controlling, and that this could be a process. There's nothing wrong with putting that down. And then later, when the marriage tribunal subpoenas, should we say, but ask for the marriage file, and that's in there. Oh, the father wrote this down. Father's still living. Maybe, you know, we might be able to get pulled into it, even though we don't like to get pulled into it. The priest who did the preparation, but so notes, concerns could be put down, but a focus test, I think. We have others: undue pressure, hastily made, emotional or physical health problems. So now, easily somebody could put no on that, and we would accept it if the answer to 11 is, but the person really wants to be introspective. Is there anything if I think back? Okay. And then we go to the marriage. What was the first problem? When did it occur? How did you handle it? So like to Susan's point, there were no problems until the end when he didn't come home or something. Okay. How did you handle it? Major areas of disagreement through that. And this requires introspection, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Communication, trust and confidence, affection, etc. And this, financial. So this is really digging in. Can you tell? He really wants to know. And so this is not something that somebody should be filling out over the weekend. In my opinion, you could start, but I tell people, please don't take a year unless you really need that time, but don't expect to, I got to rush and get this done, because I don't know that you're really gonna write the full as accurate as it could be. Any separations, any efforts to get counseling, and then other useful information. So far, and then anyhow, then we have the checklist that the priest has to sign, or the deacon, or whoever's doing the preparation. But anyhow, I just encourage you to read this. We can't give any assurances. Sometimes we might have to get an expert in if we're going to be using a ground, of psychological problems. We might have to go to a psychologist. We have to contact the former spouse. We have addresses. Okay. about the ex-spouse's right. Huh? About the process of appeal, which, did we talk about appeal last time?
No.
Whatever days you have this.
Yeah, so with basically with the Francis revision from 2015, I won't go over what the law was before, but if there is a decision, let's presume there's an affirmative decision that is made today, May 15th. It goes out to the parties by mail, it goes in the mail the 16th, and they get it on the 18th, however that works. Each party has 15 useful days to present an appeal. So we remember we talked about useful days, mean usually when the tribunal's open, so the weekends don't count. And Memorial Day wouldn't count either, so that might take them until sometime in June. If not, if the petitioner nor the respondent presents any objections, nor the defender of the bond, we talked about the defender of the bond, he is considered a party to the case. If nobody presents an appeal, automatically, by the fact that the time has passed, it becomes effective. It goes into, how you say it in civil, it becomes binding. Yeah, it just it takes effect. Okay, so even though it doesn't take effect until that time passes, or if there's an appeal, whenever the decision is made on that appeal. Okay, that makes sense. If there's an appeal, it has to go to another second instance court. Normally for us, it would be Los Angeles. Okay. No, not really.
Try to talk them out of it, or.
Everybody, they have their right to do. Now, if somebody calls irate over the phone, then you try to, climb them off the ledge.
Typically, when they want to appeal, it's not because it's appealable, they're just angry. Like, that dirty rat did this, why are you giving him permission to get married again? And they're mad, and I'm gonna appeal this all the way here, but you can't just appeal because you're mad, or because he was a bad boy. You have to have a reason that you weren't notified of something. So we want to, but we don't have a lot because we do it the right way.
So Monsignor, if they get the annulment, is that sent to? Is that sent to the records where like your baptism is?
Oh, very good question.
They take it off.
That's right. So, yes, it goes, if the parties, whatever parties are Catholic, yes, that has to go to the parent. That's why we ask where the person was baptized and ask for proof of that. Because if the person tries to marry again, well, then the person has to go get an original baptism certificate, and it would say, marriage in 1989 annulled this day, or declaration of nullity on this day. So, absolutely. So, wait a minute. We do that
The
here.
two Baptists, both baptized party and the church.
That's right. So we do it at our level. And so there could be a total of 4.
Petitioners, place of baptism, respondent, and place of marriage.
That's right. Okay. So there could be up to 3. Now, if they both met in the church, they got baptized there and married in the same place, so there's only 1. But so the registry would also go in the marriage book, right? Not only the baptismal book. So the marriage registry, a notation would be made. So you can see a lot of paperwork involved, huh? The $700 is looking more and more like the bargain of all the work.
You probably have this. Post
Yeah.
bill.
Yeah, and we're still, there's still really not provisions to do things so much electronically, even though we would accept things electronically, but like the notification that we print out a piece of paper, goes in an envelope, it goes to the place, and then that place writes back to us, And so, but we keep all that, don't we? And then it gets canned. Yeah, so. And then finally, what do we need? The marriage license from the county recorder's office. The baptismal certificate, at least for the Catholic petitioner. And then the final decree of civil divorce or civil annulment. And final means final, so it actually has to be filed, right? Filed by the court, so there's I think a 6-month waiting period, a cooling off period. And then it goes into effect.
So it
So,
will say, I gave, actually on the.
oh, it's there, okay.
I handed out, I gave examples because, I don't know, people apparently aren't, versed in civil law, which is fine. So there, I gave 3 examples of what we use in California, but mostly you're gonna look for the word judgment, not divorce. They don't even use that word. The solution.
So. Any questions? You got it, okay, so. Yeah, okay, thanks. I'm gonna go ahead and,
So basically, I'm gonna be just going over really practical things with you, not a lot of theory at all, but. I think I'm pretty good at this because I've been there 21 years and I like to impart what would tell you what. Some of the questions I've come along or what I've seen a lot of. Maybe mistakes or good or questions. And actually some of the notes that we have in this PowerPoint and notes I took myself when I was learning. It's like, what do we need? How does this work? So, and I put that together.
your cell number? Where did you open this up? Oh, did I just pack this up?
Oh, I went, no, but we're going to your comment.
Oh, we're going to my car, oh, okay, yes. Okay.
Quick question about the baptism. So let's say it's in they have baptism in Vietnamese. Do they need to translate it? Oh. No, okay.
But on that note, we realize that a lot of times, like especially before 1976, we can't get on because churches were bombed down. So that I guess the family record will be involved. But the gentleman, the notary that's speaks Vietnamese, he's really good at tracking things down if available. So he's got to connect. He's made a point of getting a connection at nearly every diocese.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He's good.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. He's
The
been here.
$700, so we're phoning Vietnam, I mean. Oh.
Been helpful. And if you wind up doing the cases when you're ordained or. Yeah, I get in touch with him. It's
Land.
awesome.
Hell yeah.
But man is girl name.
Is it
But so good.
It's a man.
Good.
It's Lund.
None.
Man is the lady and.
Okay. It's make a note of that, it's all in the,
Oh,
where it depends on where the accent marks are, okay.
Yeah.
And we're not here
But
to.
yeah, our computer program we use will not allow those accents. It will just throw everything on. So he's a baby.
Okay. Oh, well, that's not very,
Yeah, it's right.
well, you want to do the slideshow, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's usually bigger.
There you go.
There you go. So
Did you see
basically,
that? I guess, huh?
I, but it's okay.
Do we go bigger with this or no? Not we.
Fine. Fine.
I feel like it needs to go down.
Okay,
Monsignor, will you send this out to us?
I'm happy to do it, yes.
So we want to be on landscape, right? Not fortress.
Okay, Oh. Is that display settings? Mhm.
So we go back. Please. Yes, order form and.
You're going ahead though.
No, I'm just checking.
He's gonna be reassigned to St. Martin's now.
Probably layout.
Cause we only need this.
Yeah, but I think. Okay, yes, no. I think layouts is already forged, so that's why it's set to that, so.
Okay. Well, this is better, at least this way, even though this is not helpful. So maybe we just go back, yeah. Okay, we'll do our best.
Maybe it's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
I can get the resolution.
Okay,
That's good.
all right, we'll do our best. The thing is, the way we have it set up, you could actually. This is showing one full page at a time, but the way we had it was, no. We asked a question and without giving the answer, and then we just push the button,
Oh. Oh.
right? You know what I'm saying?
Wait.
Oh, click on the right side. What? What are we supposed to do?
So it just goes, like sometimes it'll do like one paragraph and you click it and the next paragraph.
Presentation.
It has to be on the other one, the presentation. mode.
Yeah.
Those slides.
But then it's gonna be only the small one?
Yeah.
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 Can you make it?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's fine.
Make it work.
I think bigger is better.
Well,
Can't.
All right, that's good.
so far, so good.
So the administrative types of cases we'll be talking about are the lack of form. I don't know how much you've gone over too much. The legamen, the Pauline privilege, and the favor of the faith. So lack of form, are you guys familiar with that? And again, this is so a Catholic party did not use the correct form when he married the person and without permission. So the criteria are one of the parties was baptized prior to the marriage. And the marriage did not take place in a Catholic church, nor was there a dispensation given or a later validation. So seems easy. It seemed easy, but
Mhm.
you really got to look at things like, oh, I was in the PA last year, but I got married in Vegas. Well, that doesn't work. Which, I don't know why it seems easy to me, but we get things relatively often that will go in that aren't correct. So the documents required are again like the formal newly issued baptism certificate for the Catholic party, and we want it dated within the last 6 months. Why do we want it dated within the last 6 months? Because they could have got their marriage validated or whatever. That's kind of a general, I usually say if you got divorced and it's after you're divorced, I'll accept it, but I'm getting nice.
Mhm.
A copy of the marriage certificate / license. And the California license, almost every license will say who married them. So if we see a Catholic priest on there, then we'll start questioning things. That's why we ask. A copy of the decree of divorce, just like I showed you or we just talked about.
Yep.
And again, it has to be the judgment. And then we also want 2 witnesses that can verify you were never married in the church. So, oftentimes you can't get one of these or occasionally. So a lot of this seems really redundant, but it's just backup. Like if you lived in Vietnam pre-war and you couldn't get your baptism certificate get from before 1975, we're gonna use the witnesses. Or, I don't know, things happen, courthouse burned down, or occasionally they don't get recorded marriages, and there's nothing there, so we use witnesses, so all those things we asked for. The cost is $65. You don't, again. If they don't have it, we don't make them pay, usually a parish will kick in for that low. That's about it. This criteria, I don't know why that's in there, we already went up there. And then this is the form. You just fill it in pretty much. I want to point out on this presentation, we had an older form. So this little part here is not here anymore. And because we have a separate decree. This used to be the decree right here. So that's separate. I just wanted to point out too, I think you got, Monsignor said you use the Teams. The forms on there at the moment are updated forms, but they're available on our CVO. And if we have time, we can quickly go through how to get them.
Have you been taught on how to get that? Okay, they know how to do it more than I do. I've got to take the class.
Do you have the password to get in? Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
No, well, there's a password protected area within our page that you might.
Yeah.
But if you don't have it, you can just call.
I think we were given it.
It's Tribunal 2023.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Look at that, they sign in, but they say, but this is really.
So you just put the petitioner's name, swear before God that the information I know is true, my marriage to the ex-spouse. Never took place in before I duly authorized, do I have to read the whole thing? Duly authorized priest or deacon and 2 witnesses. That's what the form is we're following. We're following a Catholic priest or deacon and 2 witnesses. So that's why we asked that. And that they never got a dispensation by a priest or deacon.
Well, dispensation from anybody,
Yeah.
any competent person.
If you're by petition, is it a decree of nullity? I guess. So they petitioning for a decree of nullity. Or nullity. And then, I further testify that before October 26, 2009, I never left the Catholic Church by a formal act. That was accepted by church authority. You can explain why you have that.
Yes, there was.
There's different dates too.
Yeah, there was a determination made under Pope Benedict's time. There was a lot of the question about defecting from the church, because somebody who had if you had formally left the church, but in a formal way, you were not considered held to canonical form. So if you said, I'm leaving the church, I'm no longer Catholic, then you're not going to be held to get married in the Catholic Church. Not that these people would really care. So a lot of debate was going on when I was studying canon law. And then in 2009, Pope Benedict basically said, once Catholic, always Catholic. He didn't put in those words. So whether you, unless there's a formal act that was accepted by the church. So there has to be something where somebody is putting something in and and it's formally accepted, then those people would not be, would not be held to canonical form. Otherwise,
But it's not retroactive either, so.
That's right.
During this period of time, you could have.
actually, I'm making a mistake. So it's once Catholic, always Catholic. So it doesn't matter if you leave or not, you're held to the canonical form. But before October 26, 2009, that was not the case. So it's something moving forward for the last 14 years or so. Anyhow, that's, but I do want to make, why would this say if the petitioner is Catholic? Could there ever be a case where we'd have a non-Catholic petitioner for a lack of form?
Yeah. Well, they wanted to get married again, they kind of- I think if they wanted to get married again, they have to do, they could say that first marriage failed for lack of form. If they were marrying a Catholic that wasn't, and that person didn't get married, the church didn't get this sensation.
Yes, so if I understood you correctly, I think you were saying the same thing that, so it would. If the person is not Catholic who's petitioning, that would presume that the other party was Catholic, right? So a Jewish person marries a Catholic and marriage doesn't work out, if they marry in front of, at the Santa Ana courthouse or something, and they end up getting divorced. And the woman, the Catholic party has done nothing. Well, the non-Catholic party has a right to petition for this lack of form. That makes sense? Joe, does that make sense? Yeah.
We'll go through a few.
He's a barometer, if it makes sense to Joe. Yeah.
I'm taking a serious look at the Pauline for.
Probably, we'll get there. That's an important one. So. Okay. So, with all due respect, Joe, I'm not trying to.
That's all right. Stuff that's not black.
Okay.
So if you'll notice at the top, there's a, you probably can't see it very well, but right up here, up there. Yeah, there's a checklist. Almost all of our forms have checklists. So what does a checklist mean? That means we need them. It's so you can't write NA or you can't find anything like that. If you can't find it or you're really having a difficulty, send it with a memo. We went to here's a letter from the courthouse saying they looked, or the county recorder, because I'll call, but some people just send it back and say sorry, so checklist, that means we need it. Yeah, not negotiable. So anyway, so we ask again for the certificate of baptism, marriage, divorce, witness testimony. And $65, which people don't notice because it's on a different line, but that's a little negotiable, but not, yeah. And then so the petitioner, all their information in case we need to contact them, where they were baptized, if they were, respondent, if you know it, and their baptismal status, marriage, divorce information, and the witness information. I like to point out that you're sending all this stuff in already, so we could fill it out, but we ask that you do. Because we send everything back to you and keeps just this. So to have this information is helpful. And yeah. This is it for those.
Okay, and then we've already kind of, we talked about this, we
Yeah.
talked about this. So we're just going. Okay.
And the witnesses can't be your neighbor or your spouse. It has to be someone that knew you when you got married and throughout. So usually a sister, brother, parent is the best, but could be your best man that's you've kept in contact with since the wedding or something. Because we all get some that, I've known him 2 years. And I go, how do you know they were never?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds practical to me, but. This is just what we asked them, a letter we send, or if you will send. This is the only form by type of case, by the way, that the submitting minister actually does the legwork of gets the testimony. We do in all the other types of cases, we do it ourselves. But it's 4 questions. How long have you known the parties? Did the marriage on whatever date take between the 2 people take place in a Catholic church? Did the church grant permission for them to be married on that date by someone other than a Catholic priest or deacon? Was it ever blessed after that date? Did they always consider the parties themselves to be Catholic? Even if not practicing the faith, then do you swear to the truth of the statements? So those would be sent out to 2 witnesses, or we can just get the respondent's testimony. over the years I've learned it's kind of faster to just call and fill it out and,
As long as we have certitude that the person on the other line.
yeah, yeah.
We talked about where the parish you can go to parish, that start your own. Does it have to be the parish that you maybe got married in, or where you're at now? Does it?
No, it doesn't
Any
matter.
parish?
In this case, there's no one you call.
Oh, yeah, for this, it doesn't matter at all, but, this, were even if it's outside of the
Like if
country.
your cousin's a priest and he wants to help you get an enrollment.
If he's in the dietary. But he's acting as your advocate, there's nothing wrong with him acting as an advocate, hopefully he knows canon law.
So that's actually a true story. what she's talking
You know, Father Albac is my cousin.
No, I didn't know that. Well, there you have it, I didn't know that. So you go to Steel Beach and have Father Albert, yeah, I mean, not you. Yeah. So, yeah, but normally it would be the parish that the person, is going to, that would make sense, but, okay,
And we'll get him from LA.
Number 4.
number 4.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so this means,
Convalidation.
yeah, was it ever convalidated? We talked about convalidation, right?
Yeah.
So if the couple got married in the year 2000 and then in 2000, and with at least one Catholic party outside of the Catholic Church, not following the required form. And then, now we want to,
You want to baptize our kid? I better get this married.
baptize her, so now we're gonna get it blessed. And then, so it's not just the initial act, the initial, if something else happened, if there was a convalidation. But a blessing doesn't mean, yes, they come up for communion and they get a blessing, that's not blessing the marriage. Or, oh yes, I blessed your marriage, that really has no effect canonically. Maybe God would say something, but, okay.
Anything else?
So, question and answer now? Okay. Lack of form, yes or no? This is fun. I don't, but you can't see it, so I'll have to read it. The petitioner was a baptized Catholic in 1979. The respondent was baptized Methodist in 1975. They married in a Methodist church without permission on April 5th, 2011. Lack of form possibility here?
Yes.
Let's see what the answer is.
This was fun.
Yes, they didn't have permission to marry in a Methodist church. Okay, if permission had been granted, then they would, a formal annulment would be in order. So, right, so it could be possible that, again, it's without permission, but the Methodist woman, her dad's a minister. Well, it means so much. Well, the permission could be granted. The bishop might say, okay.
Okay, so when we're talking about permission, we're talking about going, the bishop is the one you need to do it. He gives permission for this. You're good to go.
He delegates it, yeah, he delegates, we're getting late here. He delegates to the tribunal priest to do that.
And then just quickly, just pointing out why we get the newly issued certificates that
Yeah.
will be noted in the file. And the file goes to the closest parish, to
Yeah, that's right.
the other church, if it's at a Methodist church. And the Catholic church next door, whether you go there or not, that's
Yeah.
where it's gonna be filed.
Yeah, so I may have told you, but somebody anyhow, who was living here, and this man, Catholic man, was marrying a woman, well, who was not baptized. Her father's a minister, but they believe in, well, let the child make the decision as a teenager, but she decided she didn't want to be baptized, so they wanted the father to do the marriage inside of some vineyard or something in the Archdiocese of San Francisco. So we prepared the paperwork, and anyhow, all the permissions were received, and then now it had to be recorded at the closest church. So, but it would say it took place at whatever vineyard. all the, it would have that information, permission was granted and everything like that. So it didn't take place in the Catholic Church, but permission was granted, so that's considered a valid marriage.
We don't grant the permission, but in your diocese.
Well,
Right.
it's, no, actually, we get the domicile, I just learned this, the petitioner can give permission or not after conferring,
Oh,
after consulting with the ordinary of the place. So I had to write to Archbishop Corleone, and he thought about it and he said, okay, I'll give the permission. But if he said, I don't, really, this is a bad idea, probably then we would come back and say, the Archbishop says, bad idea, we're not gonna do it, but we could overrule him.
So
Yeah.
you could also. so
Yeah, yeah, that's a new 1127, paragraph 1.
How long do those permissions take? I have a friend who has, this is like true, he's supposed to be getting married at the Vatican in October. And he just got the date, and so now he needs permission from the diocese to get married there. How long does that permission take?
Well, he needs, so that's a good question, because this is, so he's gonna be getting prepared here, right? So he should, all the preparation is done in the man's home diocese, or the person, and all the proper paperwork is gathered. And then at a certain point, once all that is gathered, then the priest sends it here to the tribunal on the 3rd floor. And we make sure all the forms are in place. And then it's an ELO, so nothing standing in the way. And then that goes over to where the church or where the marriage is gonna be, whether it be in Long Beach or, the Holy Vatican.
October 12th.
but the Italy, I think, likes it very early compared, they're really strict.
Yeah.
I would,
So it's really good, the pastor doing the preparation, should have it done at least a couple months in advance, even more, because, well, we have to send it FedEx if it's international,
Yeah.
but, we want to leave enough time. So it's not on our end, we don't delay here at all, we don't delay. I mean, you can't expect to bring it in on Monday and that
Right.
we're gonna drop everything and send it on Tuesday, unless it's that urgent, but we don't, there's no dilly dallying. Okay. Next, you want to, or we have 2 more, examples, what do you think? Why don't we finish a lack of form? That's okay. So petitioner was baptized Methodist in 1980, respondent baptized Catholic in 1975. They were married in Las Vegas by an Elvis impersonator. On July,
you're not allowed to do that.
on July 4th, 2010.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. The respondent was Catholic. Okay, next.
Just one thing, just because you say they're Catholic, we don't believe you, so you need to get the certificate.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we need to know, you have to have proof that you're Catholic to the baptism, absolutely.
that's the hard part when it's the other party.
Oh, does that make sense what she said? So to prove that the others, when we have a petitioner who is not Catholic saying that the other side is Catholic, that has to be proven. So now if they're close, sometimes we've gotten the mother of their, they've gotten along well, the mother will give the mother of the respondent will give the information, and then we can call the parish and verify that it's true. That's all fine, but just saying, oh, yeah. He said the sign of the cross once in a while, or I heard him say grace before meals. Well, that could be helpful, but, okay, well. Petitioner baptized Catholic in 2016. The respondent is Buddhist. They were married at a local courthouse in 2010 and later divorced. Marriage scholars. Yeah, so what would you could be right, does it qualify for that?
There's no lack of one.
That's the question, so is that agreed upon? Okay.
Because they're.
Right, there was no Catholic at the time of the marriage.
Oh,
Next. Petitioner baptized Lutheran in 2009. Respondent was baptized Lutheran in 1962, older than anyone in this room. They married on a yacht in 2010. Lack of form?
You know, like I said, I only put these on here because they come in often. So,
No, there's no Catholic at times, the Lutherans have no form to follow. Okay, any more? Okay. Ready? I'll send this to somebody to forward. Okay. Have a nice break. We'll see you at 8:30? 8:35 or so? Very ahead of myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Great. Legamen. Yeah, it made somebody tied. Like a ligament, you're still tied to the. Legamen. We have a lot more, we have a fair amount to cover. And legamen, the legamen is probably the hardest to explain, so I think we're gonna probably spend the majority of time on this before we go to the others, so.
it's easiest to instruct, but the kind of hard to explain, so.
Yeah.
You already went over what impediments are.
Yes, we did.
Age and other things, so this impediment means that you have you've had a valid, they've had a valid bond prior to marrying another person. These usually are not Catholic parties because they'll either be a formal or a lack of form. So these are going to be the new spouses things happen or the RCIA people. Because they're not bound by any form or anything like that. So although we do occasionally get someone that got married in Vietnam or Mexico and then come here and have another family and thought about that one. So that could be a legamen if they got married in a church in Vietnam and then came here or Mexico or Canada. So, but typically not Catholic, so, valid bond used marriage can be proved. So we have to prove that these bonds happen. Now, in other cases, we can't prove things happen, but in the case of by document, so we can't prove what happened in your former marriage by documentation, right? Not even divorces anymore. They're, what do you call it? The mutual understanding state, no fault state. Yeah. So the old ones occasionally you can get a little something, but no more. So we use testimony. And these, we don't really need testimony. We do ask a couple of questions, but we're just going to use civil documents. So that's the easy part. So in the legamen, we have a petitioner, which is the person that is coming to you, the respondent, which is the ex-spouse. And then we have a co-respondent, what we call. That person could be the ex-spouse of the respondent, or it could be your first spouse.
Yeah.
So we'll look at some. I always have to draw like a, what do you call it? Chart of stuff so I can figure it out. I do. I've been there 21 years now, and I still draw because it's confusing. And the criteria is a valid bond previous to the marriage in question can be proven. So you have to prove that first marriage that this one of you is bound to was valid, right? There wasn't a Catholic that got married in Vegas. That's not a valid bond. That doesn't bond you to the papes. So possible complications, which I just alluded to, would be a Catholic involved and the marriage is invalid because it wasn't church or something, or if one of the parties has died. So if someone has a bond and then they got married again, so they had a bond for 5 years, they were dating someone for 2 years and they got married. And then 10 years later, that marriage ended in divorce. And that's the one we're looking at now. So, was this person bound to the first marriage? Yes. But just say that person, the first spouse died while this second marriage took place. Then that bond is no longer there. So this can't be a legamen. So that's a possible. Does that make sense to you? Yeah, okay. That's a possible stick in the mud, so. That's a question that we ask in our questionnaire. So someone dying, usually Catholics aren't used in these.
Because usually the death of a previous spouse makes it easier for the part to marry again, but this, and it might in another way, but then
Yeah.
they could get disqualified from legamen.
Possibly, yeah, so that's just some things to think of. What do we need? We need the marriage and the dissolution or divorce decrees for both marriages in question. That's kind of hard to get, although it's public record. At least divorces are pretty easy to get anywhere. Anybody can get them. In California, it's hard to get a marriage certificate if you don't know the information. You can't look it up or anything, but you can get what's called informational copies. So if you know the information, you can get it, and I'm always happy to help. I've been doing it so long, it's super easy. So can we always get both for the first marriage? No, but so you just inquire with us. I only can find the divorce, or only can find that, or whatever, and we'll work with you. But technically, we should get the marriage and divorce for both parties, marriages. The cost is $200. Oh, so again, a legamen cannot be used also in conjunction with a formal annulment. So just say someone came to you and they had 2 marriages, one, or no, not even, 2 Methodists came and they got married at the Methodist church the first time, and then they married another Methodist, but in Las Vegas a second time. Where was I going? Oh, so the first marriage, although they're 2 Methodists, it's a sacramental marriage, so that has to be a formal marriage, right? Get it?
Yes.
Okay, so we have to do a formal annulment. So can we do a legamen on the second marriage? And if not, why? Okay,
First one's valid.
the first one was valid, but can we do the legamen on the second marriage?
No. Because we have to use conjunction.
But why do you know?
Oh.
Because when we do an annulment, we're saying the marriage wasn't valid. It never took place. So once that marriage is declared never having taken place, that bond is broken and the second one becomes valid.
I think we made, if that's confusing, I think we have an example that might
Yeah.
clarify that.
See,
Yeah, good.
yes, we need these little pieces of paper, but figuring it out's the hard part. Once we get it figured out, that's the easy part. I guess that's all I'm hearing.
We already kind of went over this. Didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What do we need?
You already went over that.
Is this okay? Okay,
This is the
Petition.
form. Pretty straightforward. Here's our little checklist down here, which we're just asking for the marriage and divorce decrees, and then here. Down here, which you can't see, that we always have one of these. I want to point out too, that tells you how much they cost. So right here. 200, that's what that says right there.
200. Right here, it says okay. And then other information here.
Yeah, just basically the information. We do try occasionally to reach the respondent and the co-respondent, but I'm not gonna go searching them online or anything. Sometimes it's helpful, like they know where they got married or divorced, and maybe you don't know, and you don't want to call them, so I'll call them or whatever. Or just knowing that information is easier to look them up, maybe you're fine.
Yeah, and not everybody likes to receive those calls, but we do our best. So, all right. So now,
Go.
oh, you want, oh, well. So we have Mary is not baptized, marries Bob, who's a Christian. Right? No reason to think that marriage wasn't valid. However, Bob, sorry, I read that wrong, but Bob, when he married her, was already tied to Susan, who's a co-respondent. So, so let's start that again. So the two get married on the top, but Bob already was held, who was already married to Susan at the time. No annulment, no formal annulment. So we would presume that that his marriage to Susan, if she hadn't been married before, was valid. Which means he was not,
Valid
uh-huh,
and valid.
yeah, that makes sense?
Yeah.
First one valid, second one invalid, because he was tied to that first marriage.
Right, never got it involved.
Invalid,
Yeah.
valid.
Mhm.
It's like every other, if you make a little thing with a line, every other one's gonna be married, valid or invalid. So.
Oh, I see.
Okay, but that's what we're presuming. However, if Susan was married before, I think we may get into that, then that could be problematic, right? That's where you get very, so now the second one, Susan, the Catholic, married Bob, the Christian, in Las Vegas.
Invalid.
That was invalid. So is that, are they, could the, yeah, that's right, lack of form of, so
So
would this
compare
person
it
have
to
qualify to present a legitimate petition?
No.
No.
This one's invalid. That one's-
That makes sense? I know it's
Yeah.
9 o'clock
You're gonna
almost.
see some people that have lines.
On number two, what happened if Mary is Catholic? Is it still the same case?
No, doesn't matter. That really doesn't matter because, as long as that first marriage was invalid, he was free to marry. Even though there was not, this is important, even though there's not a formal declaration that he was free to marry, de facto, he was free to marry because his first marriage was not valid in our eyes. Okay.
Because he wasn't married in a
Catholic Church.
Catholic church in Vegas, because
Oh, yeah, that's right. It could have been a Vegas church. That's very good. So Las Vegas, we're thinking a casino or.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, you got a good eye. I like that.
So
Okay,
if
yeah.
Look, in the bottom case, the two people on the right were say Buddhist,
Uh-huh,
then would we presume that that would be a valid marriage and this would be like.
yeah,
Okay,
right,
but since one of them was Catholic,
Right.
then it's not. a valid
right.
marriage.
That's exactly right. So now, so it doesn't mean that if Bob wanted to, well, hold on, no, because, so anyhow, now I'm getting
But
confused.
even in this one, if they just say. This is the person that's the petitioner. Oh no, I'm just.
Yeah. Yeah, confusing this kid, because you guys are, yeah, yeah. They would have to, but this would have to be tried a different way. Yeah, that top Mary, not baptized and Bob a Christian, that would have to be.
If there's a, they got, or the first marriage gets resolved with a Pauline. You can do the gammon with it, because we're not saying the marriage never happened, which was my point. So if they were two Buddhists and we did a Pauline for this marriage, remember we said if the first one was a formal, we can't do a legamen, but if it's a Pauline privilege for this, which is coming up next. We're not saying we're not dissolving.
We're dissolving it, which means the marriage
Dissolving
is
the
still,
bond, but we did acknowledge that it happened.
We're not attacking the validity. So that's the beauty. Not beauty. The Pauline and the Petrine and the ones that go to Rome, those are dissolved, still presumed valid. So that could help us if there are other marriages that have to be resolved. Joe, did you have a question?
Well, we talked about Bob and Susan, they're both baptized.
Yes.
And then you're talking about the Pauline privilege, which
No,
basically involves unbaptized.
yeah, no, he asked if, what if they were both.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Jumping ahead and,
Yeah, that's okay. All right. So,
a loop.
oh,
What if Susan?
oh, I
was
forgot
married
about that.
to
That's right.
John? And this, so Susan's, John's Lutheran and Susan's Christian, they got married anywhere. Is that a valid marriage?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So so Susan's tied to John.
Yeah.
So when Susan marries Bob, is that a valid marriage?
No.
Right, so. Since this is not a valid marriage, can Mary? Apply for a legamen?
Yes.
There's still a.
Bob is not down,
Oh, with Bob, no,
no, this is valid,
Yeah.
not valid,
no.
valid. That's what I was trying to find out before, valid, not valid.
Oh,
Valid, not valid. So when you got someone that has 4 marriages, it's pretty helpful, yeah.
does that make sense to everybody?
Hence, I always draw these to this day, always.
A third marriage is involved. The first is valid. The second is invalid. The third one is considered valid. So there was nothing stopping him from entering into that marriage.
Right.
That's right.
Because that was invalid.
Because it's invalid, yeah.
Previous.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I can do whatever you want, he's super.
Yeah.
Well,
So can I ask a question? So John and Susan, Christian, it doesn't matter where they get married, whether it's Vegas or in the church, it doesn't matter, it's valid.
It's maybe not sacramental, but it's valid.
it's valid. So presuming it's the first for both, right? And they're not tied, how you can keep going back down the line. But if it's the first for both or
But
both,
this is in fact sacramental.
yeah,
They're
that's,
both-
yeah, that's right. It's sacramental.
Although these days, who knows?
But does that make sense to you, both of you? So we have a, look, and
That's Christian.
so, right? Valid marriage.
Right.
So the fact that this was valid rendered Susan not free
Correct,
to enter into that
correct.
marriage with Bob.
Right.
So that was invalid to
So
begin with.
Bob
She wasn't free.
Available.
Wait a minute. No, am I getting
That's
confused?
That's right, you're right, correct.
You're right.
Bob,
So Bob is available.
so
Technically.
he's available. He's
Yeah.
freaking married.
Yes. Because
That's
it's
right. So
invalid.
that have to be looked into. That's right.
Married.
So confusing.
Yeah.
Good.
But does have to be looked into. Yeah. But it's
So
different
just
way.
figuring out.
So
the
legamen would not work. There's always a solution. It's just not legamen in this.
And Susan's a bigamist, so we should look at.
Well, so. What do we learn here is that there's a lot of questions that have to be asked. And if there's, for one thing that, you might even be safe calling the tribunal on is to, make sure you've asked the right questions, because this is, there's things we get confused, or you can see, and then you think you have everything, and then, oh, there's one thing we didn't ask, and then you find out.
It just happens all the time that, oh, Mary and Christopher want to get married, but Mary was married to Bob before. Well, is Chris, what religion are, I don't know. Was Bob married before? I don't know. This and that. So I don't know if we'll get to it, but
So,
on that handout we gave you, there's a good list of questions that I provide. So you'll get all the information. So.
I have a question. When we say it's invalid only in the Catholic Church and our perspective.
Yeah, It's, and the only, yeah, because we're the ones judging the Catholic Church, yeah, so, I mean, they can go, no, but the Lutherans aren't gonna question them, the Anglicans, right? The Orthodox, a different story perhaps, but
Our denomination, I wanted to have this annulment process.
there's some who have it, there's a, I think there might be one sect of Lutherans that have it, but we're not, we don't really wouldn't accept it because, well, we don't accept, because
I think
it's
the
not a
board needs
rigorous
to do
process. There's one I've seen, but it's some, letter that's written, I've talked to the parties and I've determined that there's a, but it's for us to recognize that we have to make sure, for the Catholic Church, we want to make sure that it's our criteria. So irreconcilable differences is not enough for us to say it's invalid, whereas
And a court
annulment,
annulment is, often the grounds are very similar, the same, but we still have,
we don't accept that either, a civil annulment. Now, it might be,
but that's something the court documents make useful.
yeah, the court docs could be useful, we might use that as testimony, gosh, even the court is saying that, but as such, we can't just, okay, the court, the court of California, this court said it, and so we're gonna just adopt it. We could take it as a little bit of help. There's wouldn't an actress got it after a day or something, she had her marriage annulled? Britney Spears, was it?
Like that.
I think that's.
She got married in front of Elvis, yeah.
She's on the, she's not free to marry. She's on Paris, or is it all?
The tribunal is, I mean, the tribunal as such is the whole office, but, we would, as far as judging marriage cases, formal cases, that's only done by somebody with a degree in canon law, so it could be a layperson or a priest. And what is it now? You could have you have to have at least one priest on a panel of 3. That France has changed that too. But for these types of cases, the formal cases, there's no canonical degree required.
Even the ones that go to Rome, apparently, I could sign for.
Yeah.
You
Oh, yeah, that's right, even
have to be
the
knowledgeable.
favor of the faith ones that we'll learn about if we have time. So, yeah, tribunal is all the people that work in that office, the administration of justice, but then you can have, I guess,
Notary,
the notary, the
advocate.
auditor, the advocate. So. I know we do throw these words around like everybody, gotta go to the tribunal, what are you talking about?
Who are they?
So we should say no. Tribunal on the sky, okay. So,
It's like a law office in a way.
I'll tell you, years ago, I remember where like 2 Catholics or 1 Catholic got baptized, whatever. The Catholic did not want to get divorced. The non-Catholic wanted divorce. They were the ones that filed for divorce civilly. And years ago, the Catholic Church was like, they kind of gave a little bit of grace to the Catholic because they were the ones that filed civilly. That's not so much today, or they still look at that the other person wasn't the one that filed.
yeah, but I think, I mean, all the things are considered, but all the factors, but the bottom line is we still have to look at, was there anything standing in the way? So somebody could really be in a tough spot if the marriage was seen to be perfectly fine, and then one just gets up and leaves and files for divorce for no reason. We have to prove that there was something wrong, at the beginning.
Right.
At the beginning,
It's the
so
question of at the beginning, because we're nullifying ab initio from the beginning.
That's right. that's right.
It doesn't matter who files. They have to look at.
No, now, when we come to the ones that go, the one that goes to Rome, yes, that's where it could. That's where it could, because if it's a petitioner who's, the one who filed, was at fault, well, then that could affect it, but when it comes to a formal case, it doesn't really help.
There might be circumstances like. You're he cheated, I forget, it's just come up before, like,
Mhm.
one person's claiming all this happened, but then they were the one that filed.
Oh, yeah, okay, so it could be a circumstantial in that part, but, so we do want to know, obviously, we're gonna know, because it's all in the decree
I think
paper.
that you would use the example before that. One of the spouses is cheating at the time of marriage and was unknown to the other party. So they didn't have the proper mindset to enter into the marriage at the beginning. That would be a potential reason for no. Correct?
Yeah, that could be a potential reason for nullity, that may not come out till 30 years later, he cheated, and then investigation is done, well, you know what? He did this, he already had this propensity, and he might have done it more other times, but I can only know about this time 30 years later. And there was some certitude that this, you know, or he had an intention against it, so if he had an intention against it at the beginning of fidelity, and it could be proven. So yeah, there's a lot that could have been the case, but then only after it's looked into, could it be declared, otherwise it's presumed valid, remember that, right?
Right.
So there could be no desire to be faithful, but then it never comes out in the public and nobody asks for a declaration, well, then it's gonna be assumed, presumed valid. But we're digressing, okay. Call line, this is Joe's favorite topic, not favorite one, but he's, yeah, okay.
So Pauline comes from scriptures, which I guess we don't need to go through it.
It's all scriptural, St. Paul, remember he said, okay, you guys learned all that, okay, we talked about this, I think, in ours, yeah. Okay,
So two pagans are unbaptized during the marriage, one converts. And they can't stay bound because they can't live peaceably because they're different religions, which that's the theory behind it, but that's not practical. They get divorced, basically. So criteria, neither party received Christian baptism before the marriage. At least one party remained unbaptized for the duration of marital life. After the marriage, one of the parties converted or plans to receive Christian baptism. So it says during the marriage, but we have permission to instruct a case before baptism because we can't ensure baptism.
so whether the case, that's whether the party is, if the party is going to be baptized,
We'll instruct the case,
we can instruct the
but it
case.
doesn't come dissolved until they actually get married.
Does it make
So when does the marriage end in when does the marriage end? Doesn't end.
At that, yeah, at that, so the party is still technically married. So now it's not during the common life, but they're still on paper married, and so.
But I guess what my point was, if you're a petitioner and you're getting baptized and you were married to another, this used to be at me, just because that's about 65% of the.
Yeah.
The two Buddhists got married. Neither, obviously not baptized. They went their separate ways. They lost touch. And now the petitioner you're working with wants to come into the church and marry a Catholic other woman or man. So then we contact the first spouse, and after the divorce, 5 years after the divorce, they got baptized already. So can we do a call line?
They were both not baptized when they got married.
That's right. Right, well, of course,
Yeah.
but Buddhist, yeah.
The answer is no,
Yeah,
No.
because they're still married in
They're
the
still
eyes of the
married.
church. Which we'll find out in the favor. of the
Yeah,
faith.
because one got, now if the one who got baptized went through the Pauline privilege, well, then both are gonna benefit from it, right? But in this case, the baptism happened and no, right?
Also, they're still married.
But to throw another wrinkle in it, for a favor of the faith, it's your common life. Don't ask me what the difference is. So you could do a favor of the faith.
Well, they could do a favor of the faith for this, yeah. Uh-huh. Because, well, we'll get into that.
Common life is your married life when you stop having. Living as husband. Anyway,
Well, you confused, some are confused. Okay, so that's marriage law.
Can you just go back initially? I think you're adding a few things to it. I think that's.
yeah.
Just do it step like, okay,
Oh,
let's go back. Let me ask this question.
Cool.
Now, you have two Buddhists that was married and then they separated, right?
Correct.
They got all that. And one of them decided to marry a Catholic.
right, the one you're working. with.
Right. And then you throw in another kink in that this Buddhist now convert to Catholic.
So when we find out this person is Buddhist, yeah.
So then
No,
that's
that-
not Pauline, then-
No, that is a Pauline, that has to happen, that the baptism
Oh.
or the eventual baptism has to take place for a Pauline to be invoked.
So
But
I
then you
guess,
say something that this other.
so if
spouse-
there's two baptized,
This other spouse that's Buddhist now married, then now has converted to Christian.
Right.
Then there's no longer Pauline.
That's right.
Why
because
is
once this person gets baptized, it becomes a sacrament of marriage.
I don't think that's a,
That's
That's
right.
But the first one should be when they divorce it, they both Buddhists, that
But
should
they're
be.
not, but the marriage isn't dissolved.
it's not
Yeah,
dissolved.
we don't recognize divorce.
We don't recognize the divorce.
But
Oh.
if the first one is baptized as.
And the Pauline
and
privilege doesn't
Christian,
take
now
effect
we have a
until-
baptism, so they can get married in the Catholic Church. But if they get them to vote the Pauline. Because they've been baptized, and we recognize Trinitarian baptism.
That's why we ask them if they're baptized. That's why we question the response.
Didn't baptize the one that the third party didn't get baptized, then Paul privilege to be both. But the fact that he went and baptized, and now that. The original pagans now became baptized, even though they are no longer. Paul and privilege.
That's right.
They're both baptized.
The one had never done it,
Right,
then.
So you need one pagan in the mix.
yeah, yeah. It's a bit confusing, but, because I had the same issue that we were working on, because we thought it was gonna work, and then the woman said, oh, no, I was baptized. You know, I may not have told you, but I was baptized, Christian, and, or else that
And
was,
people like, I mean, even Catholics, they get baptized because grandma wanted them to, and they don't ever go to church again.
so
So you just saying, oh, no, I never saw them go to church.
what we're saying is that the one, it's gonna apply to the one who, asked for this Pauline, if that makes sense, so, in the case of where, that you were asking about, if you had the two Buddhists and they both, there was a divorce, they both stayed, neither of them converted, the one who put in the Pauline privilege was going through the RCIA program to be baptized in the Catholic Church, then once he, and he meets the criteria, then once he's baptized, that first marriage is dissolved.
But
And
once
then-
he gets married, the marriage dissolves. So that's like another thing with the Paulines. You have to be. We're asking permission to you to get out of this marriage in order to marry a certain person. Because the marriage dissolves not your baptism. I think
The baptism initiates it.
you have to already be baptized to start it.
Oh, boy, we're not helping you, we're confusing you here.
Which is why when you get married, if someone's already baptized, the one that you're not with anymore, then when you get married, it doesn't go away, it becomes sacrament, so you can.
If I understand it right. Two Buddhists, they're divorced, one become a Catholic.
Yep.
They get baptized. Now, do they gotta go to annul that or is lack of form, that other marriage, if they wanna get confirmed?
No, because
They
No,
can't get it.
because at the time of the marriage, they weren't.
Buddhist.
Oh, see, it's very cool.
How does it become sacramental
But
if
if
they
they-
both got married pagans? At the
That's,
time of
what is
marriage?
it, natural or, it's not natural,
Yeah.
is that called natural law?
Yeah.
It's natural law.
It's natural.
I can't explain it. I did not go to Canonical school. I'm more of the learn as I go along and.
But you mentioned it becomes sacramental when one converts to Christianity, even if they're
Both,
not together.
it's both.
They both do, even if it was after the fact, after they.
So, yeah, you'll also come across this is off on a tangent, but. If these two people got married in the Catholic, or married, and then they both, for some reason. This is not about an annulment, then they both became Catholic and now they want to have a big Catholic wedding. Well, you don't. Need to get a Catholic wedding because your marriage already became sacramental once you.
Become sacramental because they were baptized.
So a lot of priests don't know that and they have a big ceremony. But it just doesn't count. I mean,
But I
it doesn't get noted in any registry.
I guess what's confusing me is it was mentioned that it becomes sacramental, but they were divorced, they were already separated. In
But
the
we don't
baptism.
recognize. That's why we're doing it. We want them to be divorced because that signals that they are,
Separated.
they're gone, they have there is no hope of them getting back together. But do we recognize that as the marriage breaking? No. The whole point of what we're doing is annulling. So we don't. Did I can?
Yeah, it's too late. There's actually.
It's too late for you.
No, there's 6 canons on this whole thing, 1143 to 1149, but it's not really, it's not really answering the question that you have. So when does it become? I thought it was with the baptism, with the Pauline.
No, it can't be because look, it's
Yeah,
two pagans, one converted.
yeah.
But we're instructing it before they convert.
Oh,
Because
yes,
we want to make sure it gets done.
That's
before
right.
We
okay,
can't say, oh yeah, you got a point. Oh, wait, you didn't, but we already got.
yeah, okay. Okay. But normally, I don't know, normally when these are turned in, they seem to be,
80%.
they're not in another marriage. They're the Vietnamese usually who have the former, Buddhists and,
But they write down their.
they write down,
marriage.
but then at the time that, one of the petitioner is baptized, right?
Yes.
Then that kicks in for them to get into another marriage, to marry the other person. But the question is, what if they're already married at the time? That's where we're getting confused. Already, which
It's
we're
not that.
not gonna validate it, so there's gonna have to be some kind of consolidation afterwards. That makes sense.
I just want to make sure there's no impediment to baptism or the sacrament for the pagan who seeks them. And that the Pauline privilege only applies after the baptism occurs. It only applies whether or not it's going to work. Are they still married, or because one leaves, even if they're married at that point for 10 years, and then one leaves and says, I don't want to live with you because you're Catholic, I've done with this. That's fine. Pauline would then apply.
Yes, that's right.
At the time of marriage, they were both.
Because at the time of the marriage, they were both, they were both, neither were baptized, whether Buddhist or not. So I think we've muddied the waters enough here to. Here's things.
That's why we have a phone number. It is very,
Yeah.
it is.
But it costs $200.
Yeah, this-
That's a bargain.
It's just-
You know what the lawyers get per hour? No, not canon lawyers. Okay,
Here,
we went through all this, so we're gonna.
about 10 minutes to go through. Which,
So,
that's the form.
okay, it's a form, so just fill it out.
Does it have to be family member, not your neighbor again? It's like-
Okay. All right, well, should we go through this?
Oh, I mean, Well, we're not, isn't it 9:30?
It's 9:30, yeah, okay.
We kind of went through. some.
We, I think, yeah,
But you're
possibly.
gonna pass this.
Oh, yeah, we'll pass this out. Yeah, we'll send it. Okay,
This is a favor of the faith. These are the ones that used to be called Petrine, meaning Peter. That this goes to Rome. The criteria, I don't have really, there's a whole big background about how that started, but we don't.
yeah, I don't know if we have time to get into all this, but the Pope, basically what we,
Pope gave himself power.
what we studied in Canonical is that no human power, can dissolve a marriage. So the power of the keys that the Pope has. So he's not doing it through his human power, he's doing it through, this power that his office has. He, in certain cases, can dissolve a marriage in the favor of the favor of the faith of the Catholic party that's going to enter into another marriage.
So these are very similar to Apolline. We instruct them very similarly. We need a little bit more paper if they go to Rome and we don't make the decision. The difference is only one party needs to be, at
Has not
least,
been baptized,
yeah,
so
so-
it can't be a sacramental marriage.
Yeah.
We're talking about. Because remember we said, we already talked about this, yeah.
the petitioner must be engaged, or we have to give them a name, like I said before, the point. The Pope gives you permission to marry John Smith, not Mark Jones or not whatever. So that's actually in their decree that you're marrying them. And so you have to be engaged or civilly married. Faith must be present in the new marriage. It could be the person petitioning, or it could be their upcoming spouse. We'll do it in favor of your spouse's faith. And really important, the petitioner cannot be the sole cause of the breakup of the marriage. So that can get really iffy, and it all.
Yeah, how do you do then? You do have to get a little testimony here, so if. The petitioner, John Smith, was unfaithful, and that's the reason the marriage broke up, only if, everything was fine, but he was cheating. This really wouldn't be fitting for us to put in front of the Pope. Please give a favor to John Smith, who was a philanderer, what do you call it? Not faithful. Yeah, put this paper for him.
You don't reward poor behavior. That's
It kind of smacks, we're not gonna reward poor people, but if it's both people's faults, things happen, that could be okay. It's never gonna, it's hard to 100% blame over here.
that doesn't come up. I mean, even we had a little doubtful one not too long ago.
Yeah.
It was explained away and
Just curious, if you send it to the Rome, right? I'm wondering how long. it take.
Oh, it depends. It takes about the time, well, it depends, because we have to instruct it. Once it gets in the Roman office, I think it's been about 3 or 4 months or less, more.
I would say 3, up to 4, as little as 2. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, 3.
But
The longest part's our part.
our party, we gotta do we have to instruct it the correct way, and they are sticklers. They are sticklers of making sure that the T's are. Well,
Every documentation of everybody and everything, that your new spouse has to be free to marry, and if they had an annulment 10 years ago, you have to include all that paperwork.
Too much information for you to need,
But
but it can be helpful. I mean, these can be helpful, especially because it's a favor. We're not trying to prove the invalidity of the marriage. In fact, it's presumed valid, as Susan referred to before. So if this is granted, marriage is dissolved, it's still considered valid, but it's dissolved, allowing the petitioner now to marry a specific person. And that's very important, because if a marriage broke up, I mean, it's every so often, like I'm working with a lady now, well, I don't ever plan to get married again. But I want to have this marriage. I want to know that this is no, well, we're not going to go through, she wouldn't qualify for this. even if the guy, even if it was a non-sacramental marriage, she would not qualify. She has no intent of marrying anybody, so it's a narrow scope of who could apply, who might be able to apply for this.
So we now are not recognizing the baptism of Saddleback.
Mhm.
And so.
But
how are
that's-
we looking? That's probably starting up a whole new.
And that's thanks to a certain priest who, the ecumenical officer. So, we're having this conversation right now because there's,
But that's in the county of Orange, that this is really.
yeah, so there's, we're
We
still,
would have to prove that they didn't do it. Cause in a canon law, we assume the marriage,
yeah,
it's a valid baptism unless we prove that it isn't, because they don't want to take chances.
so are we gonna, if it's a Saddleback person, are we going to presume that that's invalid and then send it in? No, we're probably gonna make them do a formal case.
That's
So it's kind of
it's my opinion, but
a double standard. I don't know, did you guys get the same, did that all go out to the deacon? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of muddied the waters,
Yeah.
but there is question about the validity of a lot of baptisms out there.
yeah, because when I do send something, I usually send something like a web page and, or like the Mormons, it's already been shown. I don't know what.
Yeah,
they
the
did.
Mormons.
That's the only one I've ever seen that is.
Well, the Mormon, they don't believe in Trinity, exactly, the Jehovah's Witnesses, so certain ones are clearly not accept the universal Unitarians. The 74th Church of, well, I don't know about that. Certain ones are clearly not, but these wobbly ones, we're not gonna take it, we're not gonna send it to, right, if it's two, then we're trying to explain it away, no, we'll just do a formal. But what's nice about the favor that I think we talked about in class is that we're not assigning blame. We're not saying the marriage is null. It's just being dissolved. So it's a lot more digestible for somebody who's not Catholic,
Their kids, they
I
don't.
think,
their kids
you know.
being-
Yeah, we're not saying the kids are illegitimate. Do we say that about a marriage annulment? Oh, we don't. But
We get that all.
we don't even have to
Question.
explain, we don't have to explain what it is. That's the thing.
Well,
Am I convincing you here? There's reasons why we like to do this. I like to do it. Susan does all the work. Somebody's got to do the work, the preparation.
They cost 700 and that's because we get charged for
Or
75 or.
Okay.
Gone up, it used to be like 300 when I started. They've raised their prices more than.
Yeah, well, we have to look at that maybe.
It takes a long time. But I like to add that when the people aren't. Catholic, they don't, and the formal questionnaires are 100 questions or whatever. These questionnaires we give for these are, where you baptized? Was your mom baptized? Was your dad baptized? Did you go to church? What church? So it's a 10-minute questionnaire. So, when it's just easier instruction. Cost the same, maybe a little bit of less time, but if you're having trouble with witnesses, it's.
Nowadays, what percentage go through this method versus another?
How many did
It's changed, we're doing a little bit, well, I don't know.
you remember?
When I first started, I was doing about
Limited scope. At one point, we were sending 18 or 20 cases in a year. But we're not doing that many.
well, we can do it. I don't, we can, it depends on what the fastest way we can help you. Is what we'll do, and sometimes it's faster to do a formal. If it's a 1-year marriage and this and that, it's just like, let's just do a formal, quick formal. Because we have control over the process. Sometimes when I started 20 years ago, we were 5 years to get a formal enrollment. So Monsignor Cook had me going through all the formals. Is anyone not baptized? Here, let's do a favor. Here, let's do a favor. Here, let's do a favor. And I did I had 50 come in saying I probably did 30 a year. Now it's 10.
We were, I think at one point Orange was about the third or fourth larger, second largest some years of sending these in. A lot of tribunals don't want to deal with them because it's work.
And you it's going to Rome and I think people feel like,
It's
oh,
being scrutinized and they
Yeah.
don't want to, so let's just keep it in-house.
I didn't even realize it when I started. I'm like, okay, let's go.
So. Anyhow,
So basically,
everybody's
that's,
thoroughly tired.
I know.
Like,
And it goes fast, but when there's questions. I don't know, we didn't have time to go over like the handout, but. Do you want to talk about this?
No, I think we should do the handout quickly and then you guys could read the handout. if you
Yeah,
want.
just quickly, like I just said on the handout, but these are really good questions to ask when you get initially meeting with someone. How, everybody's baptism. You go back to marriage number one, you look at their, oh, I didn't even write this down, but I always, the way I would approach it if I was doing this at a parish is. They call you up and you say, I want to get an annulment. Okay, get your marriage and your divorce certificate and your baptism certificate, and then we'll make an appointment with me. We'll discuss what we need to do. Because that way we're gonna have information. That we might need, like, for instance, on the civil marriage license, it'll say prior marriages, so. If someone's, oh no, I was only married once. I've had someone that was, it said 4. Here.
Wow.
And he swore to me for a year that he was only married once.
Forgot.
And that's happened more than once. So it's kind of important to get this ahead of time. That's how I would do it. It's usually nothing. So that, and then this last page is just things that me and other people that work at the tribunal, just some things that come up often, or little kind of tips for successful marriage annulments. Like, don't set a wedding. You probably talked about that, I hope. Don't just hand out the paperwork to them and expect them to fill it out, right? You go over it with them. If we have a box that means we need it, a check box. Forms are available. I don't know, we've talked about a lot of it, but somehow it gets forgotten and watched. Those things I think are helpful, so I made copies.
The last thing I'll say is that, you know, the canon law, the latest edition just got published, just got printed by the Canon Law Society. And so I could talk with the deacon and say, so it's $80 if you're a member, and none of you are members of the Canon Law Society of America, though I don't know, you could be honorary, I don't know, but, or it's I think it's $125 otherwise. So I don't know how many might be interested in having a canon law book, but I could work with the deacon to see about ordering them at the member discount price, so you guys would get a discount. And then, but I would just want to know how many are, we'd have to just figure this out, but they are starting to ship now, so I could do the order. We would just, you guys coming here, you're still coming here every so often, right?
Yeah.
So.
Mondays and Saturdays for now.
So I'll work with the deacon, with Deacon Tom or his office to see about ordering enough to have them come here. But you guys are responsible to pay for your books, or does the deacon office pay for it?
We are.
Okay, yeah, but it's a good investment. I mean, it was up to date, like at the end of March. I don't know if something's changed. I mean, because there's always something coming out. But remember I told you, I mean, all the marriage stuff, all book 6, all the processes. So this is a totally up to date book. So this has been obsolete. So. So you end with good news, you can have
Everybody. Everything's rolling board.
glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end.
Amen.
In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.